Welcome. This is the Resonate podcast with Aideen. I'm Aideen Riada, and my guest today is Danita Young. Hi, Danita.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to speak to you. Let me tell you a little bit about Danita before we start. Danita Young is a transformational coach, NLP practitioner, and creator of the Align method, helping people break free from anxiety, stress, and procrastination without meds or surface fixes. With over 15 years of experience and a background in women's fitness, Danita's mission is to guide others back to feeling unstoppable, confident, and aligned with their true purpose. Well, you know that my whole thing is confidence, building confidence in people, but tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, we right before the call, we were kind of talking about a little bit of some background, and one of the stories we had talked about is being raised in a religion where it was more about their voice rather than your voice. And I had kind of expressed that. And I don't believe that religion's bad. So for those that love religion and that's how they find God, I was able to find God without religion. So I think there's always a common denominator there of what we're trying to achieve and reach. But for me, it was being able to find my own voice without having to choose a man based off of the religion's decisions, or being able to choose my own path of kids or no kids, and that would be my own decision, right? Just kind of really being able to find my own voice, and what a beautiful way to step into our confidence by being able to learn how to use our voice.
Is it interesting how we get these blocks? We get these challenges, and the challenge helps you develop the thing that you need to keep going, right? I just find it so fascinating. Like when you look back, it can be either a terrible, kind of hard heartbreak that you had to go through something, or you can look at it differently and maybe see how far you have grown through a difficult time. When you were challenged, you were basically told what to believe in.
Yeah, my analogy to that is anytime that somebody's going through something tough or challenge, as your words there, is how would we actually know it's the most amazing, magnificent, awesome day of our life if we didn't have the opposite?
Mhm.
So yeah, to your point, I really love seeing life has those opposites, those polarities is what gives us that bigger perspective, that broader view, and how beautiful it is we can sit back and go, the bad is really meant for the good and the good is needed for the bad. Like it's all unfolded together.
There's a purpose there somehow, right?
Mhm.
But we get stuck. And I think that's what what you work toward, right? That you help people who are getting stuck with that. But what did you do, or how did you get unstuck at the time when you were most stuck in your expression and being yourself?
I told you I was an open book, so I was gonna go right to the stuckest part of my life. I would say stuckest part of my life was depression, hopelessness, guilt, shame, feeling like a failure, and really got to an ending question of what's the point? That's not a fun place to be in.
No, it's not. And I know that I mean, when I turned 40, I had to retreat back to my mom's house. I was like trying to do everything a certain way. I had my mindset. I was quite stubborn, and nothing was working. And I retreated. And so, did you have a period of retreating away from life as well?
Oh yeah, I call that the contracting energy where we just isolate. We avoid ourself, we avoid people, we avoid the things we're supposed to be doing. And you almost don't even realize it's happening because it's so subconsciously, but consciously we're like, I'm working hard, or consciously I'm trying so hard that there's a subconscious retreat that's definitely happening for sure.
And yeah, I don't know if you think of it this way as well, but I love the idea that seasons allow us to understand that we shouldn't be always in constant action or constant positivity or constant achievement. Like taking a step back can be good to a point.
And especially with the feminine energy, right? Like masculine energy is very structured, linear, and built that way to keep in that linear path. But if you look at feminine, especially with the cycles and the 28 days, and when they talk about like even menopause, how our as a female, if we sync up to us as seasons, especially with our four cycles and four seasons, you'll actually identify like, oh, Going through a menstruation is the winter time. That's the time that we need to rest and really just relax with our body and go towards heat for our body for it to menstruate, right? And then, but it's so cool. I was able to do a podcast with a hormone expert that related the seasons to being a female, and it made so much more sense to allow ourselves or give ourselves permission, the grace during those different seasons to be able to be more gentle to ourselves for sure.
Yeah, and it applies to men too because they need to step back also sometimes. I know it's a different cycle, it's a different feel, but gosh, it's interesting. I'm really curious about how you work with people. When you talk about the align method, would you like to tell us a little bit about how you developed it and what it means?
I tripped completely on it. It was really one of those things completely accidental. And next thing you know, I was working with different types of life experiences, whether that was addictions, whether that was weight loss, whether that was relationships, or even parents and teenagers. So it really was just an interesting moment. I sat there and I was like, wait a minute, I turned into a life coach. How did this happen? And it was through my own discovery and journey of hitting my rock bottom moments in my own life and pulling myself out of that discovery and learning the steps that it takes to go from a contracted, isolated, retracted version of ourselves. And really, like, is anybody going to just wish and just drop it in our lap of a new life? Nope. And so, being able to work within the laws of frequency, track and measure, being able to actually see your success. So it gives you that momentum and the motivation to keep going. And then also, I really just needed the facts. I needed the physics. I needed the neuroscience. I needed to understand the subconscious, like rewiring and all that. And that is what gave me the steps to dig my way out. And that is now how I turn around and be able to help others, is using the same tracking and metrics to say, nobody's going to just randomly give you a different outcome in your life if you're contracted energy. That works against the laws of physics. We have to be expansive first to get our expansive outcome.
Tell us more about that because I'm curious how that would work.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein. I absolutely love this quote because it gave me so much hope. Because I think that word is where we all initially start, is how much hope do we really believe that we can be expanded? And the quote says, we are all energy. All we have to do is match the frequency of the reality that we want. And if we match it, there's no other way, but we will get that outcome. It's not philosophy, it's physics. And
Mm.
so to me, I was like, I was trying everything in the third dimension world. I was trying everything as far as working hard and doing all the tools and researching and learning and book reading and podcasts. I was doing that whole side of it. But I didn't really understand the energetic frequency side of it. I lived a lot of limiting beliefs, fears, and just contracting, kind of generational type of trauma stuff that I was dealing with. And once I was able to kind of like pinpoint, and this is a perfect example for those that are listening, like, you can track and measure your own belief system. So on a 1 to 10 scale, rate yourself of 10 is the highest, 1's the lowest. And don't think of it as your conscious, think of it as your subconscious telling you the answer. And so you could say, like, your typical beliefs of, like, do I feel in purpose? Am I happy? Am I worthy? Am I good enough? Am I am I worthy of love? Like, all these different elements, right? You go down as many beliefs as you want. And then as you look at them, anything that is not a 10 is technically a limiting belief.
Hmm.
And so what you'll do is, then what we want to do is bring the limiting belief to truth. And when that quote says, when you come to truth, it will set you free, that is
Hmm.
1,000% correct. Because what I got to see now is that instead of trying to meditate and do breath work or pull my earlobe to fix my vagus nerve, instead, I got to actually learn how to face the fear, face the limiting beliefs, bring them to truth. And naturally, after that, boundaries were easier. Automatically, people just started leaving my life that needed to get out. Naturally, more doors of opportunities and possibilities started opening up for me. And it is such a really cool switch when somebody hits that little switch and they finally go, oh, this is it. And I just love being able to show people the switch.
I know because it's something. There's something very interesting about our nervous system, and if we don't believe something, our nervous system will completely show that. Like it will react when we're in a situation we want, it will react as if you don't really want it. It will be unsure of itself, your physical body. And that physical body, you can treat the physical body. You can, yeah, pull on an earlobe. Singing is a great way to balance your vagus nerve and all those things. But when we can actually heal, but basically what you're talking about is a kind of healing. It's healing the vulnerable inner child that has taken on the generational issues, has listened to their mom and pop say, you can't afford that, or my mom's one was, it's better to have few needs, because then you'll always, you're always happy because you have few needs. So it's about playing small, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things that we absorb as kids, those stay with us. We can do the healings and we can go for a sound bath, but until we become conscious of some of those things, it's very difficult to completely release them, because otherwise they'll just pop out. They're deep down in there, right?
Yes, absolutely. And and those are all beneficial. They're all helpful. But they call it the warm bath effect, where you're in the warm bath and you feel nice and cozy and it feels warm as you're doing it. But as soon as you step out, you're cold again, right? So it's kind of the same effect. And so it's more of a foundational healing of being able to really get to the root of it. And I show people, oh my gosh, it's actually so much easier than you guys think. It's actually so much freeing than you guys think. It's so liberating. But only about 8% of people actually change or are willing to change. 92% of people are staying stuck in that survival brain because it's familiar. And
Hmm.
there's a sense of comfort with familiarity. And so I just show people how much more comfortable it can be with this foundational healing.
I love it. This is really amazing. So, asking yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, do you feel like you are in purpose, that you are happy, that you are worthy, that you're worthy of love? So, how many people listening are writing down their rating right now? Because I feel like I should try do it right now, right? So, when I know that some modalities, I know that EFT or tapping, where you touch points on your face and it helps. It's a pattern interrupter and it works on your nervous system, and they'd often use a rating at the beginning and at the end as well. And I think that it can be useful to rate things at the beginning and at the end of anything, right? Because it's more clear then what's really happening. I say it to my husband, he's like, "Oh, I feel, annoyed about this." And I was like, "Well, how annoyed? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoyed are you?" Especially if there's like, if I'm annoyed and he's annoyed, but he's only a 2 out of 10 annoyed and I'm a 10 out of 10 annoyed, then I think then the thing that's annoying me has to be fixed first.
Yeah, I like
I'm
that
tricky.
rule.
I'm tricky like that. So the thing about rating it is it clarifies, right? And there's a lot of power in clarity.
Mhm. Yes, there is. Oh boy. Because as soon as the subconscious wants to go back, oh, like I'll give you an example. So let's say if somebody right now is listening and they rate themselves of a 5 out of 10 of being in purpose, as an example. And then what we would do is we'd usually find, well, purpose is actually the outcome. So what would be the belief underneath that purpose? So we would usually might find, well, maybe I'm just a failure, right? And so then we could, well, so everybody's different, right? But I'm just using an example. And so then we would go back to a time in their life where they felt like they were a failure. And without even having to relive the experience or go into the details, it's more of just, well, now let's actually take a look at the bigger picture, because often as children, we have what's called the very narrow focus. We're adopting what's called egotism, where we make everything about ourselves. We're absorbing the world to identify how we fit into this world. And so we just take on like it's my fault or it's my responsibility or it's my issue. And so when we go back with a different perspective, we can say, well, was it technically your fault? And what you'll find is that everybody is always doing their best with the tools, the resources, and the environment in their head and around them. And so that's the first step, is releasing that guilt and shame they might have at the beginning. And so when you bring the clarity to it, then what they do is subconsciously they release it forever. It's not something that's now pull my earlobe or tap. It's not one of those. It's now being able to cognitively go back and now reconfirm truth and clarity. And how much that's where the freedom comes in, where you just set yourself free from that type of feeling of a failure, which which then makes you go into more of that future expansive part of us. Because to me, I show people a timeline, right? There's a past of where we've come from, and then you have our future. And our future, as I'm able to show people, it's full of possibilities and limitless and unknowns and new opportunities around every
Exciting
door.
opportunities.
Exactly. But it could actually be not it could be actually full of anxiety if we are trying to put our past onto our future, trying to predict our future, therefore making our future our past. And so that's where people get stuck in the loop, is they're just stuck in that familiarity, survival, comfort zone. And so when we can take somebody into like thinking of, yeah, tomorrow hasn't unfolded yet. And if I'm not a failure, who could I be? And it really just kind of sets really people into feeling unstoppable. And it's the most beautiful, energetic frequency you can really share with somebody. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. I was reading an interesting book about emotions where it talked about how our emotions are really just predictions, that we see something and we predict how our body should react. And so, this idea of we're constantly imagining what's going to happen next based on the past is just, it's been shown in research that this is happening. So, if you've had a difficult time, if you've been through a difficult time recently, if you've forgotten all your successes because sometimes they get buried when we've had a big disappointment, then our predictions are, they're probably not optimized. I'll put it that way.
Hmm. Absolutely. And what's really interesting too about this is I will get somebody to actually come into joy, peace, and happiness. Like I'll give you an example. I had an addict finally come into like joy, peace, and happiness. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm here. Everything I've been searching for, the bottom of the bottle, I found it. It's right here." And I go, "Isn't that exciting?" And he goes, "Yeah, but you know what, Danita, I have this like darkness creeping up my arms and my legs. Like it wants to take it away. What is that?" And I'm glad you told me. I'm glad you asked. Because what that is your brain and body chemically are hardwired to keep you in the known, the familiar. So if you've been hardwired your whole life to be in more of a doom and gloom state, possibly you might have seen that your mom and dad might have lived kind of more of a familiar, emotional doom and gloom state, then naturally you're going to say that's more familiar. And so your body is actually going to fight against things like happiness, joy, peace, freedom until we learn to say, no, it's safe. It's safe to feel these expansive, enlightened, powerful, high frequency emotions. And then as soon as we're able to tell that survival brain it's safe, oh boy, oh girl, watch out how amazing life really gets.
I'm so curious. I know that you worked in fitness and that you found your way to this method through a previous business. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Because I think sometimes that can be very revealing, knowing the journey that you went through to like what you were working at and what you were seeing with clients, how that kind of evolved for you.
Yes, I would love to share that. It is a beautiful story. Basically, what it was is I was taking individuals on to try to get a transformation. That's what it comes down to, right? And as they were going through their journey of fitness, I sat and meticulously dialed in their macros so perfectly, and then meticulously dialed in their workouts to the point of perfection. And then as they were having such a great week, they would meet with me the next week and say, "I sabotaged it all." And I'd be like, wait, I'm so confused. And so what we find is that most people struggle with a transformation is going to be things such as consistency or motivation or this procrastination that gets in the way, or even perfectionism or even people pleasing. And so I really start to dial in like, where is this like consistency? Truly, that's going to be the other piece of the puzzles. Like no matter how meticulous I get their tools, the consistency is going to be the real secret here. And what I uncovered there was that there was just so much fog and dirt clouding that consistency aspect of them, that women actually had, men or women would just have these fears that were just so locked in, or limiting beliefs that were so locked in that were really keeping them from their true success. And so, as a coach that was just so determined to get them to their results, it became like it became just this like obsession of like, how can I really get somebody to a successful transformation, as I was going through my own transformation through business. So it was kind of like a two-part story there of my side and then their side, which was kind of an indirect, cool, direct way of being able to reach transformation. And one of the interesting facts that I kind of learned is that when I was on my podcast, is I would have all these experts that I would meet up with, like from doctors to hormone experts to digestion specialists to, CEOs and all these different things. And what was so fascinating that I learned on him is I'll just recap briefly what the sentence is that I pulled from each one of those. The digestive expert said, no matter how much tests that you do on your gut biome or how many supplements you take, if you're stressed out, your digestion will always be foundationally off. Then I heard from a hormone expert. She goes, you could take all the hormone replacement therapy that you want, but if you are living in a state of fight or flight, your hormones will always have a foundation that you're going to be chasing. Then I heard from a woman in weight loss, and she goes, if a woman's stressed out, her cortisol is going to raise her blood sugar levels without her even eating. And then
Amazing.
the last one was a business expert, a CEO that sold his business, and he goes, "You can work 80 hours a week and as hard as you possibly want, but if you're out of alignment, you're going to be going in the wrong direction, making very costly mistakes." And that was the moment it truly hit me that I said, this is such a foundational aspect to success and transformation. And I really want to find out what is the root of it. Not just breath work, not just meditation, not just positive affirmations to the mirror or pulling my earlobe to fix my vagus nerve. Like, get me to the foundation of this. And that's where I started tracking and measuring my success through it. And when I did it myself, I was able to do it with my fitness clients. And when I saw that it worked for them, I was like, oh, game on. And then the next thing, it just happened organically, where all of a sudden I had addicts, relationship, marriages, teenagers, parents. That's where it all came in. All of a sudden I said, this is really cool. How cool. And what's interesting is there's nothing else out there that's like this that I can see.
Well, you're the answer for the community that you're in. This is what happens. We end up learning what we need to learn through the problems we have and through the problems we see, and we become the answer that's needed in that place, right? And I think it really comes down to I love your energy, like your personality. You really care about people. And I think a lot of the time, finding the person to work with is a lot to do with just finding someone who cares, someone who actually really cares. And
Mm-hmm.
you really do. I can feel it.
And that's the other part I wanted to talk to you about, because you're in singing and you're in music and you're using people's voice. Well, what's interesting is I look back on all my past videos of me running my business, and my energy wasn't like this. It was desperate. It was projecting. It was just very short and just too. It was just too much. And you can see that actually propels people away. It pushes people away. So I'm over here sitting here like working the 80 hours a week thinking like, why isn't this working? But then when you can use your frequency, when you've raised your frequency, you're going to, like you said there, I can feel your energy. I can feel that you passionately really care about somebody's transformation. And we can also feel that in the call right now, or if somebody's listening to the podcast right now, pay attention to the frequency of somebody's voice. And it's either going to pull you in more magnetically, or it's going to push you away. And when you listen to your intuition right there, you'll kind of know who's your right person by kind of paying attention to that.
It's beautiful advice, because this is all about alignment. Your whole process is about alignment. And you have to look inward to feel before you can know what's aligned with you, right? And if we're too outward focused or too focused on a future goal, or like the end justifies the means, I feel like this is something I feel is out there in the world right now, where people are like, yeah, we've got this answer, and it doesn't matter if it's a shitty way of getting there. Sorry for language, but like, it doesn't matter, because it'll all be great in the end. But I don't believe in that at all. I believe that each step has to be aligned, each moment being right will bring you somewhere that is right. When I was a kid, I used to have all these different things. I've done all these different jobs. I've mentioned a few of them. I was an airline stewardess. Would you believe, 4.5 years? I worked in health and fitness for about 10 years. I was an image consultant for 4.5 years, and I didn't do music for so long because I didn't believe in myself.
Mm.
And then I set up my own business, and it's just been evolving. But I always said, look, I'm going to do what I like, and it'll all make sense in the end. And so that's a piece of advice I gave myself somehow. It's just a belief I had. And it does all make sense in the end. And the journey is the fun part. Especially when you have some good people on your side. And I bet your clients find you very supportive on the journey, because it isn't meant to be a solo journey, is it?
Oh, we can save us so many years if we really look at it as a team or a partnership instead of a solo journey. And I definitely took on the solo journey, and I look back on it and say, man, I could have definitely have saved at least a decade of my life if I would have. But I had the belief of I'm not worthy enough for that. So now that I have the belief of that, now I actually do hire coaches and mentors, and I'll always make sure I have coaches and mentors now. But yeah, we don't have a very long life, you guys, right? Like, so when you kind of like see that, are we valuing our time or are we valuing our money? And to me, I was valuing my money over my time, and recognized that being in a contracted state was just taking more of my money. It's like a perpetual cycle. And to your point, what you were saying there is like, we don't want to make decisions in that contracted state, because if we make decisions there, we're always going to be in that contracted state. And so by being able to first get into that expanded state, make all the decisions you want. And so I just got done with a client, and they were talking about, well, should I divorce her? Should I leave her? Should I stay with her? And I said, don't you dare make a decision right now, because you're contracted. And then our next call is you're expanded. All of the decisions you make from there will always be more in alignment. And you go, oh, that makes so sense. I was like, yes, don't make a decision in contraction ever.
Mm, yes, that's really, really good advice. Is there any strategy or any other exercise that you'd like to share with our listeners that might help them to become more aligned or overcome stress or anxiety?
Yeah, I would say another tracking tool that I like to use a lot would be, you can even just Google this, but if you pull up that all of our emotions are measured to a frequency, this also goes with music. So it kind of is going
Hmm.
back to frequency. And you can actually see a chart of all the emotions that are actually measured. And so you'll find that guilt and shame is going to be your lowest frequency at 20, and enlightenment is going to be your highest frequency at 700 plus. And from there, you'll want to circle the top three emotions you feel the majority of the time.
Okay.
Not your best day, not your worst day, just average. And then from
Okay.
there, you're going to find out your frequency. So you'll take those three, you'll add them up, divide them by three, and you'll typically find if you're in a contracted or an expanded state. And that
Okay.
is a phenomenal tool I like to use for people, just to show them, well, no wonder why you have a contracted outcome, because your inside is contracted. And they're like, it makes so much sense. So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
another
And
one.
I think that what you're saying and your approach, what I really love about it is it takes something so intangible and something that we tend to internalize, not really be able to talk about. We don't even write in our journals sometimes. We don't externalize it. We can't see it. We can't make it objective. We can't see it clearly.
Hmm.
The things that you're suggesting really help you to take a step back from the to identify, but also stand a little back, take a little bit of a more objective view, and see things as they truly are, which is such a beautiful thing, not hiding from yourself anymore.
Mm. The clarity just becomes so real when you do exactly what you just said, stepping back and objectively looking at the bigger picture instead of just always being in it. And so, to your point, how my brain thinks of that, is what you just said, is we're all running around in the third dimension reality, that we're operating with what we can see in front of
Hmm.
us, right? This is solid, so I'm just going to push the solids in my life, which takes up a lot of time and a lot of energy. And that's where people say, I'm just so tired of being tired. And so, my recommendation to them is, if we work in the fourth dimension, which is going into the frequency aspect of what we're making tangible right now, of being able to draw out what frequency you're really at, where are your beliefs really at. What you're doing is you're taking the intangible, making them tangible, looking at them objectively, and then being able to go, okay, now my goal is then to raise these up.
Hmm.
Now, with the right tools and the right resources, we can raise those up. That's the cool part. And then when you get to see that those are all growing, we celebrate. We celebrate those mile markers. We go, okay, awesome. You took your limiting belief to a 5. Now it's a 7. What you're going to also see is that all the other limiting beliefs are going to go with it. And so it's this really cool domino effect that starts to take place. And then they're like, oh my gosh, well, all of them are at 8s. And I said, well, if you took them from a 5 to an 8, do you think you can take it from an 8 to a 10? Yeah. And so they get really excited, right? So then when you get somebody at a 10 out of a 10 with all of those beliefs, that's when I say, I hear the weight is lifted off my shoulders. It's like I can breathe again. It's almost like there's this fog that's starting to clear up. And I really start to see my limitless potential of who I can really become.
That's amazing. Why do you think this process is so important for people to take?
Because we're human beings, not human doings.
To be in a great state, it does align you then to good things around you, right?
Laws of physics.
We're going to be finishing up in a couple of seconds, Danita. I'm afraid our time is running out. Is there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share before we finish up?
Yeah, I would just love to share as a gift. I'm going to get emotional. Oh my goodness. As a gift, I just want to help the world in the most giving, loving soul to another soul. And as a gift to all your listeners, I want to be able to just reach out and just say, if you want to make your intangible tangible, you can jump on a call with me and I can do actually an assessment on you. Will be free. And I don't expect anything in return. I just want you to see where you might currently be at and have an understanding of why you continue to keep getting that outcome. And I can do it within 20 minutes. If you take 20 minutes of your life, and all you have to do is just go to callwithdanita.com and I'll do a free assessment on all your listeners and just let them see the tangible and a different perspective.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful gift. And if you're listening, why wouldn't you do it? It's an awesome way to move forward. We all need to try to keep momentum going, right? Life, if we get stuck, I said it to someone recently that life was monotone. You know, the auditory thing is for big for me with the voice. I was like, for a while there, life was monotone, right? But when we get it stuck, we deserve to look for the help that we need. And it's not about one person, you know, being like, oh, I'm amazing because I'm not stuck. We've all been stuck at some point. You've shared some of your moments. So please don't ever think that there's something terribly wrong if you're stuck right now. It is a contraction that could lead to an amazing transformation, like the way a caterpillar gets contracted in that little chrysalis, you know, and it's pushing. So yes, I think you're an amazing person, and I'm really happy you were able to come on the show today. Thank you so much, Danita, for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I love your energy. And thank you so much for what you do. We need more people to be in their expansive energy, to keep giving hope to the world that there is a thing called expansive energy, to actually see a real smile and go, oh my gosh, it's a real smile. She's really authentically smiling right now. So thank you for that.
Yes. That's it. Let's keep the smiles on our faces. Thank you all for listening. This is the Resonate podcast with Aideen, and we will see you again on the next episode. Bye bye.